Hey guys, thank you so much for all of the support and sharing the podcast and subscribing. If you haven't subscribed already, please, what are you doing? Subscribe. This helps me out so much so I can continue this. And I really do want to continue the podcast. I think it's so much fun. I get to have these awesome conversations with people who I feel like are like way out of my league. But if you have not followed me on social media already, it's at Jeff Gruby on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Go ahead and share with me your maybe your favorite podcast episode. That'd be a really awesome thing. And I think you're really going to love today's guests. All right. Take care, guys, and take care of yourself. I don't have any really, I don't care where this goes.
Okay.
When I wanted to do the podcast initially, this is an awesome intro. When I wanted to do a podcast initially, I was thinking, man, I got to have this awesome background. I got to have all these things set up like a cool can. I was like, you know what? The whole idea of the podcast is fuck perfect. So I'm just gonna jump in and see what happens. And I've had just an amazing amount of people, but I really love the conversations. Like that's the best part. Like I would still, of all the coaching I've done, the conversations with either people I admire, like yourself, or people like it, I consider this one of my thank you podcasts. Like how I just gonna say thank you so much for everything you've done for me, from a distance. So thank you for that. I know. I'm just gonna get into it. Here's my guest, celebrity trainer Joel Freeman. He's been doing fitness for over 15 years or longer than that now, right? You had programs with Core de Force, and one of my favorites is Lift 4. You have a new program with Beachbody, 10 rounds. Yeah, and fellow, you're a cat lover. Can't forget that, right?
Right.
So
That's
thank
right.
you so much, Joel, for being on the podcast.
For sure, brother. For sure. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah. So I'm super stoked that we're having this conversation, and I was kind of looking, kind of like, Instagram stalking you, and I'm like, okay, what's a good question I can ask? Because a lot of times I'm not really interested in the questions you always get asked,
Sure.
and ultimately I want to go down this path of talking about. I guess we'll do it now since I brought it up. Talking about an area in your life, since the whole podcast is called Fuck Perfect, where you at one point did you focus on perfection and you kept getting pain or just problems until you were like, you know what, this is not the right thing. I need to focus on progress. And
Yeah.
was there a certain area of a life that you can talk about?
Yeah. I mean, that's a really interesting question to ask anybody, especially being in the fitness industry, because that we're built on the world. This world is designed around aesthetics, and it's designed about how people look and look a certain way. I mean, you think about and me starting. I started in the gym world. That was my first gym job was at 19. So and from there I was in the gym industry section for a long time, before I left to come exclusively to Beachbody. So I was in the gym industry for a very long time, and it was all about aesthetics, and it's all about what's considered perfect. And obviously that has changed over the years and it's changed over generations. And if you look back, it's always interesting to look back and even what happened in early 1900s of what was considered perfect then would be considered overweight now, or obese now,
Right.
whatever there's. So it definitely changes with generations. But for me personally, I just never got into it. I think I was lucky in the fact that I never had any aspirations to compete ever. Because I was like, that's way too fucking hard and difficult and way too much effort. And like, you mean I can't drink? I'm not interested. So, for me, and I get the question a lot of people asking, like, well, how did I get started into this? Was I always into fitness? And this this will lead into what you asked was, I never had an interest. I went to college I changed my major every semester at Texas Tech. Like I didn't know what I wanted to do. I left 3 years into it. and Brian and I were talking about this a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about like student loans and things like that. I'm like, even if I had graduated college, I would have graduated with a degree in general studies. Like, what the hell are you going to do with a degree in general studies? Like that, it would have been, it's straight out of Van Wilder of like leisure studies. That's exactly pretty much what I would have had. So I left 3 years into it, but I was just needing a job. And and I was bartending at night. I was waiting tables, or I was bartending, waiting tables at night. And I was framing houses during the day. Wasn't going to class or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just, tired of both those things. Those are two brutal things to do, and not sleeping or anything. So I just needed a job. And so my first job at a gym, front desk, graveyard shift, 2 a.m. to 10 a.m. shift. It was a job, and I took it.
Yeah.
And what that did, looking back on it, which is interesting, is what that did is because it was the graveyard shift, and because I was the only employee there, I had to learn how to sell a membership, how to sell personal training. I had to learn a lot of facets about the gym that usually you would never learn if you were just working the front desk. Obviously, that's not in the job title. So it was interesting to get that position because I had to learn these things. And then I sold gym memberships. I sold personal training. I just was always good at talking to people. So I was good at it. So I was, that kind of started to catapult me, so to speak, into, morning manager, and then sales guy, and then PT guy, and just in the sales. I was always good at sales because I could always talk to people. I've always been a people person. So, but I was still, and then when I moved up to Washington State, just south of Seattle, Olympia, Washington, and was up there for 8 years in my early 20s, working in gyms, taught group exercise classes and things like that. But I was still going out back and like smoking a cigarette on my break. Like I was not into health. I was not into the aesthetics of it. I worked out, I lifted, I wanted to look good, but I didn't care about a six pack. I was always kind of the skinny kid. So I didn't, I would eat the whole entire pizza and jack and no diet, just regular Cokes and all day, and never have any issues with it. Early 20s metabolism was great.
Yeah, dude.
Doesn't exist anymore. But so with all that, I never had that thought. I never had the thought of wanting a six pack or any of that stuff for a very, very long time. I just was never super interested in it. I think because of that has helped me in my career, because I've always been just me, just the real guy. Nothing. If I look back, I'm 37 now, started at 19. Do the math on that one. If I look back from day one to where I am now, yes, I've evolved. There's no question about that, and learned, but I'm still the same guy. I don't smoke anymore, obviously, but I still love my whiskey. I still love my cheeseburgers, which if anybody follows me on social media, they know these things. And so I think from day one, I kind of said fuck perfect because I just was never even into it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it just was never. And then obviously, the more I got into the spotlight with, with Les Mills and the Beachbody original partnership when we did Les Mills Pump, which was 9 years ago. That was the first time where I really realized I had to kind of start dialing in a little bit and be serious. And so that was like the first time I actually like really cleaned up my nutrition and then really started focusing. I had quit smoking by then. I just, I was lucky. One day I just got tired of it and stopped. But it was, so what, and then it's slowly increased. It's slowly morphed. So, now and my wife's probably been helped with being the biggest influence because she loves tracking calories and macros, and I hate it, but she inspires me to want to be the best version that I can be. So it's not trying to be perfect, it's just wanting to be healthy and stick around for her and obviously have a long and fulfilling life at this point. But so long answer, but just I lucked out. I just never got into that mentality of and we hear those stories, especially in the fitness industry, of people who have gone through eating disorders and just some horrible
I had a buddy
anxiety and shit.
who was his brother was in a competition, and the day after the competition, he was in the hospital for liver and kidney failure. But
Yeah.
he was shredded, right? So it's like, what
Yeah.
the fuck? Like, there needs, like, my whole thing is like healthy,
Yeah.
and learning what, what that is, right? And it's not, and I do feel, as a Beachbody coach, and as a an outside coach of Beachbody as well. I do feel the pressure of like, shit, like, the eyes are on me, so if I don't look like I have abs, even if people don't actually put in the work to get them, they won't
Yeah.
take me seriously if I don't have them, even though
Right.
that's not the goal, right? um but yeah, like I remember, just
Well, there's
when,
a there's an interesting, because there's a difference between healthy, like
mm,
physical health, versus visual health,
via
and
vanity, yeah.
the vanity aspect of it, and what we are, where we are right now. And slowly, I've seen more change probably in the past maybe 2 to 3 years about that actual vanity
Mm,
aspect of it, where it isn't a, we're starting to see more people embrace, not being super shredded. And I do love that.
that's awesome, yeah.
I think there's a happy median there, because I also don't want to go. And it's not saying anything about body shaming or anything like that. But it's something about like, but if you have, for lack of a better way of saying, if you've got a big person, a big girl or a big guy, and they're like, well, I'm proud of my body, that's great. But that's when you get to a certain size, that's when the mental, or that's when the medical health comes into play, right?
Sure, but
So
help
there is
from
that
both sides, right?
exactly. So there's that middle ground. And I think people now like even be super shredded. Like I don't walk around super shredded. Like the pictures that people see on the covers of Lift 4 and 10 rounds and quarter force, that's marketing. Of course
Yeah,
we got
yeah,
to be
yeah.
super shredded. That's a photo shoot. So of course, like when I have to get ready for a photo shoot, it's a couple months
It's
of
prep.
yeah, really prepping and dialing in. I still don't go to the level of competition. 6 7
Right.
percent. I have been 6.5% body fat once in my entire life, and it was when we were getting ready for the quarter force shoot, and
Yeah.
I went kind of extreme and dropped so quickly. And what it did to my body, I mean, it fucked with my testosterone. It messed with everything. I'm like, I had no
Right.
energy. I was irritable. I was like, nope, no, thank you.
Yeah.
So even with when we shot like the Lift 4 stuff, 8 9%, and could I have been more shredded? Sure, but it also comes down to that, what's truly realistic, and that's
Sure.
for the rest of the population. Like nobody, I shouldn't say nobody, 99% of the population, they just want to lose weight, and they just want to
Yeah.
look good. They just want to look good naked, and they want their clothes to fit. Like that's it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's how I am too. I just want to, when I take my clothes off, I just want my wife to go okay, and be excited about it. And
Yeah.
I want to look good in my clothes, and I
Yeah.
want to be healthy. But I'm not going to give up the things that I love, which like I said, is
Right.
whiskey, burgers,
And
and
there's
shit.
a really important area kind of point that you're making too, which is the entire pillar of what I do. Um, is when I help people, it's like, when I say, what diets have you tried, what nutrition programs or what workout programs, were you happy doing them? Because if you're not
Right.
happy, you're not going to maintain anything. So I say, like, look, whether one program or a different program or one diet works for you, I don't know. But let's start by keeping the foods you super love that you just
Mm-hmm.
never want to give up. And let's work around that. Because if you're not happy, shit's not going to stick. And I want this to
Right.
be a lifestyle thing and not a 30-day, 60-day lifestyle. Because I was that way the first time I did, P90X. I was like, man, I'm getting in shape for my wedding. I lost 30 pounds. I got married like a year later. I had 40 back. And I was like,
Yeah.
what the fuck? I drove over the train tracks in California. My man boob was like jiggling. I was like, oh no, how did that happen? I know, my kind of how I started this thing was my mom. I had a I had a terrible, I mean, I'm not ashamed to admit it, but I had a terrible relationship with mom my whole life. But I just saw her
Mm-hmm.
chasing happiness so much, where it was like constantly the grass is always greener, where she'd get something it wouldn't satisfy her, that kind of stuff. And that really interested me. And I went down this path of acting to follow to investigate perspectives of different roles. Like because each person feels like they're right, in their own perspective. And I thought, well, maybe if I could make her laugh or I could influence people, that could bring happiness. And I remember in college, my friend, I'm not sure why I'm talking about this, but my friend said, she's like, we're in the oceanography class. I fucking hated general education. And we're in oceanography, and I was like, man, I gotta like take so many more semesters of language of Spanish. And for me, I thought memorizing acting lines was fine, but for language, I just really bad at it. I'm really bad at like languages. She's like, well, if you change your degree at the end, you could take less language. I'm like, what? This is great. I remember changing my degree to education. I had education tacked onto my degree. I was like, this is a great backup for me if I'm a failed actor, which I never even pursued anyways. But I got into teaching. I did an extra year of college, and that's how I met my wife. So that was like, oh my gosh, so like everything happens for a reason, right? And ended up being a teacher and loving it, just super loving it. And like, oh, I'm still helping people. I'm still, kind of teaching, and I brought a lot of like personal development kind of life skills into my teaching, which, when I was a teacher, the schools were obsessed with test scores and stuff like that. And
Right.
and even though I was bringing in these results, and I would tell them, like, tell the kids, I don't care if you use your notes, your books, you ask your friends the answers. I don't care. You have this much time to do your test. Because when your parents go to make dinner, they don't go take 2 sticks and make a fire every time. They use the tools that we have. And I just want you to know how to find the answer. That's the important thing.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to memorize it. But school didn't like that too much.
I can imagine not, but I mean, look, there's also a certain
Yeah.
point of that entire world where, um, as social media has evolved and technology has evolved, I mean, and I've talked about this before because my father just retired. He was he was an English teacher for almost 30 years. So
Wow.
he just retired this year, and we have these conversations all the time about there's this what I called there was a back when I was a kid. It was the time between not knowing and knowing something, and that in that space and time, you learned how to find the answer back in the day. And this was before computers. This was before,
for sure.
This is
Yeah.
like, Encyclopedia Britannicas that we had. And, you had to,
we had those.
yeah, we had those. Nowadays people have no idea what that is. But those were all the things that we had. And those are the things that we had to do to get to the point from not knowing to actually knowing the answer to something. And so that cognitive development, that critical thinking, that allowed us to problem solve and come up with solutions and figure things out for ourselves. Versus now, you got information at your fingertips. You don't even have to type it. You can push a button and ask Siri. So like it's legit. The time, because that time of not knowing something to knowing something has gone by the wayside. And it's that whole, now people don't have to remember shit. So the retaining of information, it almost is unnecessary for people now. And I think that in part is the problem that, again, every time I would talk to my dad and he was talking about school, and you hear that, and I was like, I think that's a huge reason. There is no reason for people to have to remember shit anymore, because you have technology to do it for you. So, I use social media obviously for my business, but if it was not for that, dude, I can give two shits about it.
I'm with you, and I'm sorry for all the people that do follow me or follow us, and they think we want to stay there. I don't. Before becoming a coach, I was almost on my way out. I'm like, no.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I love it because it is. I treat it as a business. And I get a lot of people all the time. They're like, "Wow, man, you're always on social media. Like, you're always commenting. Like, people are always wondering if it's actually me. If I'm the person commenting on theirs, I'm like, I'm liking. Yeah, it is 100%. I am 100%. Nobody manages my social media but me. Like, that'd be weird. but I treat it like a job. Like I
Right.
treat it like a job, and that's how I treat it. And I love it. It's a very fulfilling job what I do,
Hmm.
because what I see. So there is good about social media. I'm not saying there's not,
Absolutely.
and I love and what I see is the good part. I see people who are tagging me and their weight loss stories and their health and fitness journey, and I love seeing that. If so, with all that said, but if I had a different job and it had nothing to do with anybody else and it was just an office job or something like that, then no, there's no way I would have social media, because I just like that part of technology just doesn't really interest me. I like to live. I like to experience things instead.
Yeah. I actually had this, my wife was sharing this app with me. It's called Forest. Have you heard of it?
I
The
have not.
idea, it's very new to me, and it sounds silly, but it's kind of cool. The idea is that you set a timer of like how long you want to set your phone down for and not pick it up. If you do that enough, you have enough points where they will go out and plant a real tree in the world.
Oh, okay.
I was like, well, that's cool. It can kind of encourages you to not pick up your phone. So I've
Sure.
been doing that because I just I really want to go back to a flip phone because I don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
But I had a question when you brought your dad up as a teacher. I'm curious, is that do you think that this is your way of following in his footsteps of being a mentor to kids?
Um, I mean, not a mentor to kids. Like I think there's just, similar
Big
personality
brother type of
traits.
thing?
Oh, the big brother thing, that was just, I mean, I don't have any siblings. I don't have any brothers or sisters. My wife and I haven't really ever had any interest in having kids. I never had any interest in having kids, but I always knew that there were kids out there that were already here that needed help.
Hmm.
So that's really more where that came from was, uh, I'm very much into the mentality, and I have posted this before, and about, you know, changes changes happen in our next generations. I'm not saying you can't make any changes right now. We know the world's just gone crazy right now with a lot of different things that are happening, but the focus, in my opinion, also needs to be just as much, not just what's happening right now, but needs to be just as much on the next generations to show them
Absolutely.
the right ways to do things, so they grow up not replicating what's happening right now. So that's, and I, if I can do it with with one kid right now, then then I am. So, but for following in my father's footsteps, uh, from a coach, from a mentor, from a trainer perspective, it's definitely a personality trait. Both I am my father's son. If you see us, it's no question who my
Hmm.
dad is, and it's very much a uh, very extroverted, no problem talking to people, life of the party sort of thing. Like, so yeah, we're very, very similar in that regard. And I think it was just, um, I didn't know what I wanted to do growing up. I didn't know what I wanted to do in high school. I didn't know what I wanted to do in college. I never had, that's why I changed my major so many times. I never had any thought to like a career choice. So, what this, I've just always been really good going with the flow. And if it didn't
Yeah,
work, then
yeah, yeah.
I would just switch gears and go the other direction. So I've never been scared of doing that. And I think that's another thing, people always ask, like, well, how did I get to where I am? I have no fucking clue. I just knew that I would do this thing. I'm like, I don't like this. And if I had a job, I was like, I don't like it. And then I would leave. I would quit. I would do something else. I'd move on to the next thing. I would look for new opportunities. Um, moving from Olympia, Washington, back down to LA was almost on a whim, but it was to take a job down here. And if it didn't fit in my car, I sold it or gave it away, and just
Uh-huh.
drove down here in 2011 and found a place to live on the way, by renting a room. And it was a friend of my dad's, because he lived in the
Yeah.
valley for years. So, not, just not being afraid of taking those risks, and being okay with it. It's scary, but what's the worst? I mean, at the end of the day, like, what's the worst you're gonna lose? You're gonna lose some possessions.
Right.
You can always buy a new bed. You can always buy a new couch. You can, from a paycheck perspective, there's one mosquito, of course, now it's like bugging me outside. And we were just talking about mosquitoes at the beginning of this too. That's awesome.
He heard he
Little
accepted your
bastard.
challenge.
I know, right? I got some spray. I'm going to be spraying them, as we talk too. Yeah, it just, yeah. So I think it's just that the spirit of the venture spirit and not being afraid to take some chances and hit the fuck it button. That's what I've done a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. And I think, when I think about, I've moved a ton in my life, and I get like an itch, or like I gotta go somewhere, or I gotta change things up somehow if it's too much routine. That's one of the other reasons I left being a teacher. Like I got pushed out, but at the same time, I was like, I don't want to get stuck. I feel like if
Right.
I do this long enough, maybe your dad might kind of know this too. It's like I felt like if I'm a teacher too long, that's all I'm going to be.
Right.
And that's a limiting belief as well. And I wanted to leave. When I was looking at moving, we wanted to move to a place that had the best schools in the country with no snow. Granted, it wasn't California, so it was like
Right.
we had the opportunity. Like, okay, we have the money, we can go anywhere in the country. So that was just Texas. I went to Houston, Dallas, San Antonio. I didn't like any of them. I almost said, "F Austin, I don't want to go there." Um, but then, when we got here, I was like, all right, I think I can do this. And we didn't know anyone. We had no family. We were just going to go, boom, we did it.
Yeah.
And it's been amazing. All the people that have come into our lives, it just kind of makes sense. And it's kind of, I love winging it. I feel like I think there's a power in winging it. I feel like there's a power in having a plan, but not over planning. Right.
Right.
Yeah. And I think this kind of goes into over planning in terms of like maybe nutrition. I want to kind of talk on just I'm going to talk about treat meals and only maybe treat meals.
Right.
You are cheeseburgers and whiskey, right?
Sure.
What are some other?
I had a cheeseburger for lunch. It was amazing.
And I think we touched on this before, where it was like the idea of balance, right? Like
Yeah.
you said fuck perfect in terms of the diet and not going that hard for for abs and things like that all the time. For me, and the idea of fuck perfect for me too is there's so many people who judge themselves or the group as this. You have to be perfect, like you have to be always eating, whether the diet says no carbs or if the diet says
Right.
52 grams of carbs, and then make sure your macros are 100% like that. People are aiming for perfection. I'm like, you're actually going to be you're going to be creating more pain, I think,
Mm-hmm.
for yourself, more stress, right? And for me, I've been plant-based for like 2 years, which is new to me. But here's the funny thing, the catch. People say, "Hey, are you vegan?" And I'm like, "No." And they're like, "What are you, plant-based?" Like, isn't it the same thing? Like, yeah, but sometimes on Christmas I have a steak or I have brisket, and like most plant-based or vegan people will be like, "Oh my god, like you're not one of us." Like, I'm like, "Yeah, but I don't know, most of the time I am, right?" So it's
Right.
like there's like this judgment. So how do you feel about just treat meals? What are you
Well, I
like
mean,
besides the burgers and
y- y-
stuff?
yeah, I mean, look, a treat meal is, you can call it whatever you want. You can call it cheat meal, a treat meal, live your life meal. I don't give a shit. I'm the biggest proponent of it,
Mm,
because I do it. That's really that's the biggest reason why I'm a proponent for it. So, you know, nutrition to me is very much like exercise. You got to find what works for you.
mm-hmm,
From the exercise perspective, people ask me all the time, how do I stay motivated in my workouts? Because I weightlift and I box, and those are the two things I love to do. I don't run, I don't
mm,
bike, I don't swim, um, I don't do Pilates because I don't want to do any of those things.
right.
And nutrition to me is the exact same thing. I have zero interest in being plant based because it doesn't interest me. Like nothing about
Totally.
it interests me. Vegan, paleo, all that shit. Like none of that interests me. And and this is, and just so we know, like this is a very generalized conversation, not talking about any sort of restrictions that somebody obviously might have. Nutritional restrictions.
Absolutely, yeah.
Nutrition
General.
restrictions, of course, now you know that you got to do it, but this is just every day. I don't have any nutrition restrictions, so that's why I can say this.
Yep.
I love steak. I love chicken. Those are my favorite things. So beef, chicken are the things that I love. I grew up with it with my dad, doing those things. So those are the things I love to do. And, it's been a learning process for me as well over the past, because as we were kind of talking about, like since 2011, 2012. So really the past 8-9 years, it's been a learning experience for me. I've learned more about what I need to do. And most of that is, partly in necessity. As you get older, your metabolism slows down. You got to be
For sure.
and to be ready for a photo shoot as well. But then it's also just knowing what works consistently for me. And Brianne's been a big part of that because she loves that stuff. Like I said, she loves all the nutrition stuff. So, she's been a great influence for me to look at that and say, okay. But I have found, and when I look at it, I find like, okay, this is what works for me. And it's not going to work for everybody, but it works for me, and it works great, and I enjoy it. And there's months where I feel super dialed in, shredded, and then other months where I may not feel that. I'm not unhappy about it because I'm enjoying myself. That just means I'm going out more. Or I'm enjoying myself.
Fun.
I've been past couple months, like the past month, we've done. I've done with all the guys we've been doing. We did a lake trip, and then we did a dirt bike trip, and then we're going back to Mexico in a couple of weeks. And that's a lot of booze, and I'm okay with it because it's not the time. So between the last trip and this next trip, we've got 4 weeks. So for the next 4 weeks, I'm going to be on my schedule, on my regimented schedule, which is the calories. We do track Brianna and I track our calories and our macros, so we're looking at it. So I'm going to be pretty spot on with my calories. And when I do that, I make sure that my drinks fit into that. Like I can have a whiskey every single night because I'm making sure it fits into my daily my caloric intake. And so that's. But what that does with me is it also shows like, okay, that if I'm eating something for lunch, like I could either have cheese or this or that, and not have a whiskey, or if I want a whiskey tonight, I'm not going to have those things. And what that has taught me is, a nice little checks and balance system. And it's like,
same with
and then you kind of learn about like, how important is that cheese to you for that particular meal, or do you want the whiskey? And in doing that, it's kept me really consistent, and that consistency is where you see those long-term results. So
absolutely.
And what people have to remember too about the programs, Lift 4 is 8 weeks, 10 rounds is 6 weeks, Quarter Force is 30 days. Those programs are designed for that specific amount of time for a specific end result. It's not necessarily meant to say, like, Quarter Force is a perfect example. That's a 30-day shredding program. And it's a great one. It's a great shredding program. But that level of intensity, from the exercise perspective, and that level of discipline from the nutritional perspective, that's not long-term. So that's not feasible long-term. I wouldn't suggest that to anybody, but it's like, look, if you want to get shredded in 30 days, or if you really want to jumpstart and get it, like, you almost use it like a springboard, for instance, for 30 days. Great. And then, then you start to find out what works for you. And Lift 4 was, with my first solo project, I was really passionate and super dialed in on knowing with Lift 4 I wanted to make something that was going to show people, okay, here's your 8 weeks, but this is how you can maintain it, hopefully long term. And that's where they called it the cheat day. That's what, you only could win so many battles at corporate, so they wanted to call it a cheat day. So that's what it is. But that's where the cheat day came into it, and that's where showing people what balanced macros look like, and showing people that, okay, 4 days a week, you don't have to work out every single day. You can move it around your schedule. So, it's all those things. You have to find what works for you. Like you said, you're plant-based. Great. That works for you. That sounds horrible to me. Intermittent fasting, I know people who have loved it, and it sounds horrible to me as well.
You know what's interesting about that is it's just like, I don't know if social media is mostly, not maybe all of it, to blame, is the idea, how like social media, they encourage you to interact with the post by offering your judgment. Like judge this post. Do you like it? Do you heart it? Do you angry it? Whatever. So I'm wondering, like, when I tell people, for example, hey, yeah, I'm plant-based, they're like, well, I would never do that. I'm like, but no, that's cool. That's cool. I didn't say you had to. They're like, that sounds crazy. I'm like, no, no, it's fine. It's fine. You don't have to do it. Like,
Yeah.
they somehow, some people think when you say what you are, that they have to match it. and and that also happens a lot where people like, oh, this is what I believe and I want you to do what I do. Like, no, I couldn't be more. I actually became so anti cookie cutter diets, and like I got realized, hey, there is there's way more options for people, not just one thing. It's not always like one thing for everyone, uh, which is why I'm such a weird person when I'm like, posting about donuts I eat, and then maybe eggs and pancakes with like there's a place out here in Austin, they make pear slices of pear and bacon and scallions in the pancake, and it's the weirdest thing, but I swear to God, it's the best pancake ever. Uh,
Interesting.
I'm like, I can't believe you eat bacon. I'm like, yeah, but this is just how I like it, and I'm so much happier. And then like I don't do it. I'm not eating bacon every day. I mean, I
Right.
could, but I don't. That's not what I like. So
Yeah.
it's really interesting. And talk about Lift 4. I had a crazy experience prior to Lift 4. I had an adverse reaction. Please, I hope people don't fucking troll me for this. I'm not anti-vax. I had an adverse reaction to a vaccine, and
Hmm.
we couldn't figure out what was going on. I had like these muscle spasms and fiery pain at my back, and basically when my son was born, he was almost a year old. I couldn't do this motion. I couldn't hold him.
Hmm.
Anytime I would do this, it would just go like up my back, like just fire. And I had like this sensation of like bugs crawling down my legs all the time, but there was nothing there. So it ended up being like this neurological thing. And so the reason I bring up Lift 4 is I was so committed. I'm like, I'm not going to let this get me. Like, this is going to help me grow as a person. I'm not, I mean, I could have just gone with the advice, like, hey, this is just your life now. And I was like, no, that's not my life. Like, this is not happening. Like, I'm willing to accept it's happening to me, but I'm not going to accept the results. So I was kind of I became a yoga guy. I was like, fucking yoga, my flexibility is shit. And so I'm doing that. Eventually, when Lift 4 came out, I was like Joel, I couldn't even lift 10 pounds. I couldn't hold the weight. So I started out doing no weight, uh, but I could do most of the hit and everything. Um, and because it was 4 days a week, I was able to do some of the yoga on the off days to still do something. And over time, it was like, shit. Now I had the spasms and stuff was going away. I started doing infrared saunas, and I went like just full health nut, just like
Hmm.
whatever I could do, I just did it. Um, but then I was doing 10 pounds, 20 pounds, 30, 40, 50 pounds again, and it's been I don't know, whenever Lift 4 came out, when it first came out is when I did it, and I was like, I can actually lift weight again. That to me was just huge. Like I could hold my son, which was like just huge. I thought like there's sometimes you get the negative belief like maybe I'll never be able to pick him up. Maybe I'll never been able to, like, if he's doing a sport, like kind of pick him up and like that was just eating at me, and that's what
Hmm.
actually kind of kept me going too, is the worst case scenario thinking. The so Lift 4 was huge for me. So thank you for putting your heart and soul and your blood and sweat into that program, because it was something that helped me. Plus, other thing that helped me,
The Theragun.
my my wife, when I first got it and I turned it on, right?
Yeah.
She's
Well, it
like,
looks like, I mean, look, to be fair, it looks like a crazy sex toy.
she says
Um,
she calls it dick punch.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah.
and
I
so I was
mean,
like, oh God.
I'd say take that as a compliment, bro.
Yeah, yeah.
If you're getting equated to that. But no, I know what it looks like, but it is an amazing tool, for sure. And that's awesome about Lift 4, man. Congrats on that. And that's there's something that I learned over the years,
Hmm.
from everything, because in my 20s I did CrossFit. I tried that. I did a lot of different things in the fitness industry. And I have injuries to show for it. You know, a
Mm.
hernia at 20, was I 24, 25, I herniated 2 discs in my back and had to go through all that stuff, and never had surgery, but dealt with
Oof.
nerve issues. And, you know, I've tweaked elbows and shoulders and knees and all this. So I've gone through my slew of injuries. And so what I've learned over the years from doing all that, a lot of it was a repetition injury as well from teaching. So, I mean, I was, you know, when group X instructor, I was teaching 14 to 20 classes a week. And,
Wow.
you know, at that point, I was limping around. And the minute I stopped, it was amazing. The minute I stopped teaching, it's probably 5-6 years ago where I stopped teaching group exercise classes completely. And I mean, at 37, it's the best I've ever felt. And, you know, I've gone through the things that I need to go through. You know, I do the shots for the nerve damage in my back. That takes those away. And then, you know, did a little PT on my shoulder today, and it's great. And so, but I'm doing these things, but the point of all that is what I've learned through all of that is muscles are what hold everything together.
Yeah.
You know, you have your skeleton is your structure. You've got the tendons and the joints and the ligaments that, you know, attach things, but muscles is what keeps you moving, and that keeps you, I don't want to say pain-free, but it gives you the ability to do those things. Bend over, pick up your son, tie your damn shoe. Like, there is nothing more humbling. Like when I hurt my back at 24, 25, there was nothing more humbling than having to lay on my bed, on my back, and pull my legs up to get my underwear on. Like that. And I remember saying, I was like, really? Like, I'm like early 20s. I got the whole rest of my life. And so, like, through all those injuries, I realized really quickly, you know, you realize that when you get hurt, that
Right.
it comes down to muscles. And so, you know, over the years, that's why as I move forward now, especially at 37, and when I design lift 4 and then 10 rounds, you know, and I say those two because of, you know, my solo projects. And so it's a little bit easier when you're writing, just, you know, when working with just yourself on that stuff, is I don't do high impact stuff. I just don't have an interest in it. That's not me. And because I know if I do a high impact, like if I do a tuck jump, my shit's going to hurt the next day.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, you know, I'm a believer, my philosophy, my practice, my writing of fitness programs is designed around high intensity, low impact, relatively low impact. And that's how I continue. I plan on continuing that in the future. You know, with whatever I get to do next with Beachbody or anybody else, it will always be that, you know, I love high intensity, but I am not going to be jumping up and down anytime soon because that shit hurts.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel you on that. I also, so I was I am a black belt in martial arts, and I started, and I kind of just put that on the side for a really long time. And just last year, my daughter's been going for a couple of years. So I'm like, maybe I'll join this place. And holy shit, like, I mean, it feels great. And then they start sparring, and they don't really wear a whole lot of gear. And it's like, guys, I don't want to.
Yeah.
I like this. But I'm not gonna do the sparring part. Like, it's cool,
Yeah.
but I need to walk the next day. I need to do my shit.
Yeah.
I also work out because I also was doing group fitness classes at the karate studio. I was kind of helping out before the whole quarantine thing happened, and I was only teaching like 12 fitness class, group fitness, and I was like, holy shit! I was just dropping weight. Like, I was like, oh my god, I'm losing too much weight. And everyone's like, you're so lucky. I'm like, I'm doing too much. I'm
Yeah.
doing my workouts. I was doing what was it, 6 week of work at the time and doing the group fitness and doing karate classes. Like, oh my god, my body is just dying on me.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
need
there's
to.
such a thing as I don't know if maybe it's just my thing. I came out with it, but I call it the group exercise bod, where when you're teaching so many classes
Mhm.
for so long, if I look back when I was teaching, like I'm in way better shape now than I was when I was teaching all those classes. It's because there's something to be said about not letting your body recover.
Absolutely.
and being able to give it everything and give your body a chance to recover and heal and push in weights and all these different things. So if I look back, like the years that I taught group exercise classes, which is about 8 years total, my body looked the exact same. It never
Mm-hmm.
changed. Um, I hurt all the time. When I stopped teaching all those classes, then I started getting a physique, not a body, a
Mm-hmm.
physique, like, building muscle, because I was able to lift solid and rest and
Yeah,
recover,
yeah.
and then also feed my body, because you're saying you're dropping weight like crazy. When you're burning thousands and thousands of calories a day, you can't consume enough food to
I know.
even to counteract it. So your body is just, your body's in survival mode. Yeah. So
Uh,
I called the group exercise WOD, because that's what I had.
that's so true. I remember and being plant-based at the same time, the calories are very I was eating peanut butter like a fiend because like this is the
Yeah,
only
I
thing I
bet.
can I can really get.
I
But
bet.
that that's so true. But just your metabolism is just so everything's just shot. And the thing about recovery, and maybe you kind of picked up on this when you were 24, 25 with a back injury, the recovery portion of when I had the major injuries, like that really opened my eyes to like, shit, I can work hard and I can eat great, but I need to recover great too.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
that's
I
so
didn't,
important.
yeah, it is important. And I mean, um, back at the, when I had my back issue, I still wasn't fully in it as I am now. More recent, probably last year would be a good example. So, coming off a dirt bike trip and had a good spill, and sprained my left LCL. So was definitely limping around. And so I had to dial it back, in terms of my lifting. And I could obviously
Mm-hmm.
get some upper body in there, but I couldn't do any sort of lower body, like any sort of compound movement. So, yeah, I had to, and so that was like my first instance of definitely having to dial it back a little bit and just caloric intake. And but it was the recovery. I did my PT, and and was patient, and because of that, I was able to get back sooner instead of pushing myself. And that's something I've had to learn as well. Like even, and what I'm dealing right now, like I don't have a lot of injuries, luckily right now. It's just a little shoulder nag, which is just from, a year of nonstop 10 rounds work,
Mm-hmm.
and development. So, but again, that goes back to repetition, the repetition injury. So, there's something to be said about giving that, but you take the time, you rest, you recover, you repair, if you need to. And then when you do that, you're able to come back stronger.
Absolutely. And I think I mean, recovery is important. I started tracking mine with like one of the Whoop bracelets. I
Sure.
gave that a shot and I'm like, this is cool. It's too expensive for me, but it's cool. I don't really like trackers. Just want to go off my feelings. Like you'll tell me you're fully recovered. I'm like, I feel like shit. And then other
Yeah.
days I'm like, I feel amazing. And it's like your recovery is really bad.
Right.
Um, I was wondering, like throughout your life, you had this kind of theme of defying the odds. And I like the stories you kind of shared with me and the stories I've seen online. It's like things have come up and you just said, fuck, I'm gonna get past this. Like, what
Hmm.
is it, like a no excuses thing? Like, what do you think kind of drives you for just like your stories? Like, you constantly just don't let things hold you back, like the
Yeah.
leverage of something.
Uh, yeah, man. I mean, it's look, I don't want to. I want everybody to think that it was easy, or that it's always been, rainbows and unicorn farts. I mean, there was legit, like before. I've had low points. 100%, I've had low points,
Mm,
and those low points always, when I look back on it, those low points were always right before, a really big decision was made, in
interesting.
terms of me making that decision to either stay in that spot or
Hmm.
move on, or something happened to, as a catalyst, or some sort of catalyst happened. And so even before I got the job offer to come down here, back down to LA, where, I'm originally from. All my family's here except for my mom, who lives in Texas, but everyone else lives here. So, I'd wanted to come back to LA, but I was living up in Washington. Coming down here is not an easy thing to do financially. And was working, I had an office job up there that I hated. It was a cubicle job. I was teaching group exercise classes. You don't see the sun for 9 months out of the year, which I hate. I need sun. I'm a sun guy. So I was depressed. I was straight up depressed. I was coming back. I would go to work. I would go to the gym after work. I would teach, a couple classes. I would go home. And my roommate and I, we would drink. Like, I would drink, no shit, an entire bottle of Jack Daniels every night and kill it. No problem. And I'd wake up hungover and do it again, almost functioning alcoholic at that point. So I'll never forget. I remember I was on the floor in the living room, laying next to the fireplace because it was cold and miserable outside. Had the bottle. I wasn't even using a glass at that point. I was just drinking out of the bottle. Like, you got a problem if that's happening. And I remember getting a text message, from a friend of a friend, who acquaintance I had worked with in the past, saying, "Hey, there's this potential job down in LA. Are you interested?" And I looked at it, and 5 minutes before that, I'm like, was thinking how stuck I was. And I saw it. I'm like, fuck yes, I am. And then the minute I said yes, then I started feeling, I'm like, all right, cool. I'm going to do whatever it takes to make it happen. And I came down here, did the interview. Within 2 weeks, like I said, within 2 weeks, I was down here. If it didn't fit in my car, I sold it. I gave it away. I junked everything and got the hell out of there. So I've had those points. I don't want everybody to think that I haven't, and it's all been great, because it hasn't. But that point when I was at my lowest, that was definitely my lowest. And as I was driving down to California by myself, it's a day and a half drive. I had a lot of internal conversations about, like, okay, this is your chance. Like, how many times do people get a chance to start completely fresh? Let's see, at that point, it's 2011. So I'm what? I hate doing the math. 29. So, 29. So how many times do you get that opportunity at 29 years old to start completely over? Like, nobody knows who you, like, I was coming down, like, I didn't have any friends down here. Nobody. It was just a job. So I said to myself, I'm like, okay, man, you wanted to get out, and this is your opportunity to get out. So now is the time to, like, start over. So I left it all behind. So, like, just went on and did that. And not to say, since then I haven't fucked up and made little mistakes along the way, but it's definitely just been like a cognizant thought in my head. Like, okay, if I'm not am I happy? No. Okay, time to change it. Am I happy? No. Okay, time to change it. And that came with dating people down here. That came with the job. That came with everything. It just came with even the friends, even the people I hang out with, and still even to this day, where if I meet people, or even if I've been friends with them for a while, and I'm like, all right, dude, but if I'm not getting anything out of it, and this is a one-sided friendship, then I'm moving on, because I am now at a point at 37, married, happy, successful. From in our terms, we're happy where we are. We love where we live. I love my job. I love my wife and all that stuff. I got no reason to change any of it. You know what I mean? So like there's no, so like if anything threatens that, it's not allowed. It's not invited. It's not even going to make its presence known in my world. So that's, so I know exactly now who I am, what I want, because I have it. So, and now all I want to do is, now that I have all the things that I want, which is my wife, we've got a great little place. We don't have a mansion. We don't want a mansion. We have the things that we love, and now it's just like, okay, now we just want to travel. Now we just want to experience the world together. And now we just want to enjoy our life together, So I think what happens with so many people, despite their age, is they feel like they're stuck, and they feel like they're stuck, and they are stuck because they're not willing to make those difficult decisions take those difficult and scary actions and have those really, really hard conversations. And that goes, my wife, she's been married before. She was married once before, and she had to have that difficult conversation with herself, and she did. And she left her husband. Because of that, we met, and then I've met her ex-husband. We're still we're all friends, and everyone's happy, so but it was and that was a really hard decision for her to make. She took the action and left. So people feel like they're stuck in relationships. They feel like they're stuck in jobs. Dude, there's jobs everywhere. There's people everywhere. There's housing everywhere. There's apartments everywhere. Like, just because you have a nice house in bumfuck Egypt over here doesn't mean that you won't have a nice house over here on a different side. And because if you're unhappy over there, then what's the point? So, I because I've had those hard conversations and those difficult decisions, I'm just, once you do it, you don't want to ever go back. Ever.
Yeah, I haven't heard bumfuck Egypt in a long time. My mom used to say BFE. She was like, where'd you park the car? BFE.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Like, I love that perspective of just like, what you're saying is like, if you're not happy, change your actions. Like, just change it up. Like either go bigger, kind of go big, go home kind of mentality.
Right.
And I think along the same lines, like if you're not happy, if something's not working for you, either change what you do or change your expectation. Like,
you only got you
that's it.
You have one life. It's cliche. But you have one life, and you might as well do it right. But it's and I've done this in a post a lot, is you can still I say be stubborn in your goals, but flexible in your methods.
Absolutely.
And that's something that I've lived by, because it's like, okay, I always knew that at some point I was gonna be married. Wasn't like stubborn about it. I didn't really care, but I was like, okay, it's like at some point I want to be married at some point and give it a shot. I told Brianna too, I'm like, I'm only getting married once, son, so if you dump me, I'm done. I'm not getting married again. But I wanted to be married. I wanted to be, I didn't want to have to worry about money. I wanted to be able to travel. Wanted to, actually never even thought about having a house. I always thought I would just be like a condo guy. Have like multiple condos, different places, so I could just travel around. So I never thought of it, but now I have a house and I love it, because I love building things. So I love, building stuff around the house. But I never thought I would have all those things doing what I'm doing now, ever. I never thought that I would be a Beachbody, using the quote marks, a Beachbody super trainer, because that's her title, making home fitness programs. I never, ever thought that was going to be the job. So, but the goals were there, but the methods have definitely changed and have been flexible. And I think that's what you got to do. So you can be stubborn in your goals, flexible in your methods. You can still get to your end goal. It just may not be the way you thought.
I think I live that. I fucking live that. And I think so many people haven't flipped. They're flexible in their goals and they're stubborn in their approach. Like,
right. 100%.
I was like, they just keep wandering, Like I sometimes have conversations with a few, like, of my wife's friends or acquaintances. I really they're just her friends, and they're telling me this stuff. And the thing that, like, I don't know, for me, my facial expressions, like, I'm terrible at poker. If someone's like complaining or not focusing on what they can do about something, like, my face just gets all like what are you doing? And they can see it. My wife has to kind of nudge me, like, fix your face. But so what do you got going on next? You just finished 10 rounds. Sure. What is going on next in the Freeman house? Is it
well, I mean, 10 rounds. Yeah. So we finished filming 10 rounds at the end of March. We definitely, I mean, we lucked the hell out on that one to wrap filming literally the week. I mean, I got home the first Saturday in March and everything locked down the next week. So we wrapped filming right before everything locked down for COVID. So we really lucked out with that.
We were trying to do a Disneyland trip, right? And we were like, should we go in February where it's cheap, or October when there's Nightmare Before Christmas? And I was like, honey, let's just do cheap this time because Joey's really young. So we went February 25th.
Yeah, you looked out too. So everything was, we definitely looked out with that. And then, so now that it's out, usually the way it works is, especially now, so it's early access still, like it's that the VIP, what's called the VIP early access with 10 rounds. So it's technically not out until October because the program release date is when it goes into the BOD, Beachbody On Demand All Access Library, which is October 1st. So between now and then, it's just my job is to basically support Team Beachbody coaches, help them understand the program. And then, I've been doing that for the past 12 weeks. And then now going to shift gears a little bit starting on Monday, kind of go back to Lift 4 for a bit because, we have 2 million subscribers in Beachbody On Demand. That's a bigger pool of people that have the ability to do Lift 4 versus maybe 250,000 people who purchased early access for 10 rounds. Gotcha. So my job is to support coaches for 10 rounds until October. And then right now support people who are doing either 10 rounds or Lift 4, obviously quarter force. So, I'm going to start up Lift 4 on day 1, week 1. I'm going to do it for its entirety starting on Monday. Just support people from that standpoint. So, that's what I got going on is going to be doing that. We're going to keep traveling. We're going back to Mexico in about a month. We look at it, we do our research, we look where we can go and we travel safe and, people can like that or not, but it's our decision. So, but there
is something to be said about one area of being cautiously responsible and safe, being on the other side of living in fear and isolation, and then the other side is rubbing your dick in everyone's face.
Well, that's illegal.
There's the
so you're not supposed to do that anyway. I've heard. So
as long as you put a mask on, you're fine.
Yeah, right. As long as you put a mask on your face, you're fine. But no, we go to the places and everybody's like, oh my God, you're traveling to Texas, you're traveling to Colorado. Dude, I have no cell service when I go to these places. We're remote. When we're out dirt biking, we were out in the middle of nowhere. We were on the lake in Texas. When we go to Mexico, we're definitely, we're on a resort and there's not a lot of people there, but we travel and we have our mask on and stuff like that. So we're going to keep traveling. We want to support, and we're supporting that travel economy. We love it. We don't have any plans to stop. And obviously we didn't travel, of course, when it first hit, and, we did our part. But we have our masks on and we don't have big parties. We don't go to big group outings and things like that, so, that's us. So that's what we're going to do. And then, I don't know, I got to think that I feel confident in the fact that I will be doing another program at some point. It's going to be, they're typically every other year or so. I wouldn't want to do one every year anyway, that, that's saturated, people are getting, you don't want the same person every single year. So, definitely, hopefully gunning for something in 2022. We'll see.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Joel, for taking the time out of your day to do the podcast with me. I appreciate it. And I'll let you know when it launches too.
Sounds good, man. It's awesome. Great chatting with you.
Absolutely. Thanks, man.
All right. Later.
Later.
Hey everyone. Today's episode is brought to you by Vivo Life. Now we all know how important protein is to maintain an optimal diet. And me, I'm a busy dad of 2 little kids, and as much as I want to get all of my nutrients from Whole Foods, sometimes I just can't manage to make that happen. And I absolutely need the best quality foods so I can recover from my workouts and sustain my energy so I can show up and be the dad that I want to be. And that's why over the years, I was on a quest to find the healthiest and cleanest protein powder that I can use after my workouts. So what I do is I mix a scoop of Vivo Life Perform in with my post-workout recovery meal, which is oatmeal, blueberries, flaxseed, and it tastes amazing. I love it. So not only does Vivo meet the criteria I need, it also is environmentally friendly as well. It's 100% plant-based protein and the flavor is extremely smooth compared to other protein powders I've tried out there. Part of the reason is they use fermented protein, which is the healthiest protein that you can have for your digestive system, especially mine. On top of that, it has amazing ingredients like turmeric, ginger, and reishi mushrooms. What's so freaking awesome is that Vivo Life stands behind their product, and if you don't feel the difference in 30 days, they give you a full refund, no questions asked. So I get it. We're all unique. We're all different. We have different preferences. You be the judge yourself. Go to vivolife.com, and at the checkout, use the coupon code PERFECT10 for 10% off your first order. And by the way, my favorite flavor is the banana and cinnamon.